Billionaire witnessed a black girl defend his disabled son minutes later. He changed her life forever. Part 1. The Weight of Impossible Choices. Jasmine Williams woke at 5:30 in the morning to the sound of rattling pills. The alarm hadn't even gone off yet, but her body knew the routine. Cold linoleum beneath her feet. The kitchen counter holding 3 amber bottles that contained her grandmother's lifeline. She picked up each one, shaking them gently, listening to the sound that determined their next few days. 3 days left. Maybe 4 if Grammy took half doses, but the doctor had warned against that. Jasmine opened her one wallet and counted the crumpled bills inside. $47.50 from her weekend shifts at Murphy's Diner. The math was brutal and simple, just like it always was. Medicine or groceries. Never both. Hidden inside her chemistry textbook was an envelope that haunted her dreams every single night. Stanford University acceptance letter. Full tuition required. Deadline in 6 weeks. Every morning she stared at that letter, wondering if she should tell Grammy. The joy would light up Ruby Williams' tired eyes, make her smile the way she used to before life got so hard. But then what? When reality crashed down and they realized dreams cost money they'd never have. What good would hope do then? Morning, baby. Grammy's voice drifted from the bedroom, followed by that cough that was getting worse each week. How are you feeling, Grammy? Jasmine called back, already knowing the answer. Don't you worry about this old woman. You focus on your studies. But worry was all Jasmine knew how to do anymore. Ruby Williams had sacrificed everything to raise her after the car accident that killed Jasmine's parents when she was just 2 years old. Grammy had been a teacher then, with her own house and retirement savings. All of it gone now, sold piece by piece, year by year, just to keep them breathing. The walk to school saved $2.50 on bus fare. Every single dollar mattered. Jasmine passed through Riverside on her way to Jefferson High, walking past mansion driveways and luxury cars worth more than her family would see in 5 years. The contrast burned somewhere deep in her chest, but she pushed the jealousy down like she always did. Jealousy didn't pay for medicine. Jealousy didn't get you into Stanford. At Jefferson High, she was the quiet, smart one who worked too hard. Teachers liked her well enough. Students respected her from a safe distance. Being poor in a school where kids drove BMWs to class created its own kind of isolation. An invisible wall she couldn't quite break through. In advanced placement chemistry. Jasmine sat in the front row and took notes with a pencil worn down to barely an inch. Around her, classmates complained about buying lab supplies. $60 for beakers alone, one girl whined. $60. That was 8 hours of slinging hash and cleaning tables at the diner. That was 2 weeks of Grammy's medication if they stretched it thin. Enough. Mrs. Peterson caught Jasmine. After class would that look teachers got when they wanted to help but didn't quite know how. I have scholarship applications, she said gently. Community service helps your chances, but you'd need 40 hours by Christmas. 40 hours. 5 full shifts at Murphy's. $160. 2 weeks of Grammy's medication. I'll think about it, Jasmine said. But thinking was all she could afford to do. Her phone buzzed during lunch. Murphy's Diner asking if she could cover someone's shift tonight. Then another text from Grammy saying she felt dizzy again, but not to worry. Jasmine's hand shook as she typed back that she'd be there soon. The weight crushed her chest until she could barely breathe. Extra shifts meant medicine money, but failing chemistry meant losing Stanford forever. She was drowning in choices where every option sacrificed something vital. Lunch period found her alone in the courtyard, head in her hands, surrounded by normal teenagers worrying about normal things. Weekend plans and college visits and spring break trips. Problems she would have killed to have instead of these. The Stanford letter burned in her backpack like a physical weight. Full ride or nothing. No middle ground for people like her. She pulled out her phone and calculated again. Like maybe this time the numbers would add up differently. If she worked every possible shift, skipped meals, stretched Grammy's medicine dangerously thin, maybe, just maybe, they could make it work. But what if Grammy got sicker? What if the diner laid her off? What if? Jasmine closed her eyes and tried to imagine a world where being smart was enough. Where working hard guaranteed success. Where she didn't have to choose between her future and Grammy's life. But that world didn't exist for girls like her. The shouting started suddenly, cutting through her thoughts like broken glass. Loud voices. Cruel laughter. The sound of someone crying. Jasmine looked up to see 3 seniors surrounding a smaller boy near the fountain. The boy was on the ground, tears streaming down his face. His painting lay in a puddle beside him, colors bleeding together like watercolor tears. Every logical thought in Jasmine's mind screamed at her to look away. She couldn't afford trouble. Couldn't risk her job or her grades or her future. Grammy needed her to stay invisible. Stay safe, stay focused on survival. But the boy's sobs cut through every logical argument, and Jasmine Williams dropped her homework and ran straight into the fight she absolutely could not afford to. Part 2. When Cruelty Meets Courage, Tommy. Harrison clutched his canvas like it was the most precious thing in the world. The painting showed stick figures, holding hands under rainbow. Weeks of careful work with his tongue poking out in concentration the whole time. He'd worked so hard on it. Stayed after school with Mrs. Martinez to get the colors just right. Dad's going to love this, he whispered to himself. Practicing the words for when his father picked him up later. Tommy had autism and Down syndrome, but his heart was pure joy wrapped in a 14-year-old body. He saw the world differently than other kids, saw beauty and friendship where others saw ordinary things. His paintings reflected that innocent wonder, that belief that people were fundamentally good. That's when Derek Collins spotted him. Derek had everything Jefferson High worshipped. 6'3" quarterback with college scouts already calling. His parents donated entire buildings to the school. His shadow fell across Tommy like a storm cloud blocking out the sun. Look what we have here. Derek's voice carried across the courtyard with that casual cruelty popular kids perfected. Little Tommy and his finger paintings. Kyle Turner appeared beside him with his phone already raised. Derek's personal documentarian, capturing every legendary moment of senior year for social media fame. Madison Price completed their unholy trinity. PRO Min Queen beautiful, with a heart made of ice and sharp edges. Tommy's shoulders hunched instinctively. He tried walking faster, but Derek's long stride caught up easily. Where are you going, buddy? Derek stepped directly into Tommy's path, blocking his escape. We just want to see your artwork. Please leave me alone, Tommy's voice barely whispered. My dad is coming. Madison's laugh cut like broken glass across the courtyard. Oh, this is precious. Did you use your feet to paint? It would explain the quality. Kyle raised his phone higher, angling for the perfect shot. This is going viral. #Jefferson High Art. Tommy's breathing quickened with that pattern Jasmine recognized from caring for Grammy during panic attacks. Hands starting to flap. Body beginning to rock. The world becoming too much, too fast, too cruel for his gentle spirit to process. Please stop, Tommy begged. His voice breaking. Derek mimicked Tommy's movements, turning them into a cruel puppet show for his audience. Look, Dice, he's glitching. Maybe we need to call tech support. Students slowed as they passed by the scene. Some pulled out their phones to film. Others whispered to each other. But they all kept walking. Walking by was easier than getting involved. Safer. Smarter. Nobody wanted to risk becoming Derek Collins' next target. Madison reached for the painting with her perfectly manicured nails. "Let me see this masterpiece up close." "No." Tommy pulled back desperately, but Madison's grip was stronger. The sound of tearing canvas echoed across the courtyard. Like a scream, Tommy stared at his destroyed work. Weeks of love reduced to broken pieces in seconds. The stick figures still held hands in the corner that remained intact, but their rainbow was bleeding and torn. Beauty transformed into tragedy. "Oops," Madison's innocence was poison sweet. "Butterfingers. Maybe this teaches you to stay with your own kind." Derek decided to finish what they'd started. He pushed Tommy, not hard enough to seriously injure, but enough to send him stumbling backward into the fountain's edge. Tommy's hand scraped against concrete as he fell. The painting flew from his grip, landing in yesterday's rainwater puddle. Colors bled together like watercolor tears as Tommy sat in the wet courtyard, staring at his ruined art. Then the sobs started, deep and heartbroken. Sounds that cut through every conversation, every laugh, every cruel whisper in that courtyard. Kyle kept recording, zooming in for the close-up. This is gold. Pure social media gold. Derek stood over Tommy like a conqueror surveying his victory. "Maybe next time you'll remember where you belong." The courtyard slowly emptied as students headed to their next classes. Security cameras pointed in the wrong direction. No teachers in sight. Just Tommy, 3 monsters wearing human faces, and phones capturing his destruction for entertainment. From the visitor parking area, David Harrison walked toward the main building, early for his meeting with Tommy's teacher. He was planning to surprise his son, maybe grab ice cream after school to celebrate Tommy's latest painting. Instead, he found himself frozen in place, watching his child being systematically destroyed by other children. David's every instinct screamed to charge across that courtyard, use his adult authority to stop this nightmare immediately. But something held him back. Maybe the way other students just watched and filmed. Maybe the realization that this probably wasn't the first time. Maybe understanding that adult intervention wouldn't teach these kids the lesson they desperately needed to learn. His hands clenched into fists as Tommy rocked back and forth on the ground, completely overwhelmed, shutting down the way he did when the world became too much. This was his baby, his heart walking around outside his body. And these children were tearing that heart to pieces for fun, for likes, for entertainment. But then movement caught David's eye from across the courtyard. A slender young black girl dropped her backpack and started running toward the confrontation. She was smaller than any of the bullies, just a kid herself with everything to lose. But the determination on her face was fierce as lightning, beautiful as thunder. David held his breath and watched. Part 3. The girl who wouldn't walk. Away, Jasmine's mind screamed warnings with every step forward. These weren't random students she was running toward. Derek Collins' father sat on the school board. Madison Price's family donated the new gymnasium. Kyle Turner's parents were lawyers who ate scholarship kids, like her, for breakfast and didn't even bother with napkins. Getting involved meant making enemies she absolutely could not afford. Meant risking her fragile position at this school. Meant possibly losing Murphy's Diner if they complained to management. Meant jeopardizing Stanford if this somehow went on her. Permanent record. But Tommy's broken sobs drowned out every logical argument her brain could manufacture. She thought of Grammy's voice from 1,000 different moments throughout her childhood. "Baby, we don't turn away when someone needs help. That's not who we are. That's not who I raised you to be." Even if helping destroyed everything they'd worked for. Even if doing right meant losing everything that mattered. Some things were worth the cost. Jasmine reached the group breathless, her heart hammering against her ribs like it was trying to escape. She positioned herself between Tommy and his tormentors. Knowing she was about to start a war she had no hope of winning. But some fights were worth having anyway. "Get away from him," Jasmine's voice cut through the courtyard like a whip, stronger than she felt inside. She arrived breathless and terrified, but her stance was solid as steel. Her hand shook, but her feet stayed planted. Derek turned toward her, genuinely shocked. He knew Jasmine by reputation only, the scholarship kid who kept her head down and never caused problems. Seeing her challenge him was like watching a sparrow attack an eagle. Oh look, Derek's amusement was sharp enough to cut. We got ourselves a hero here. Mind your business, scholarship girl. This doesn't concern you. But Jasmine was already kneeling beside Tommy, her voice transforming from fierce to gentle in a heartbeat. Hey, sweetie. You're okay now. What's your name? Tommy looked up through his tears, still overwhelmed but responding to kindness the way flowers respond to sunlight. Tommy, they destroyed my painting for my dad. Tommy's a beautiful name, Jasmine said softly, helping him stand with gentle hands. She noted his scraped palms and torn clothes, the way he was still trembling. And I bet your painting was absolutely beautiful too. Around them, the circle of phone cameras grew wider. Whatever happened next would be online before lunch period even ended. Her name, her face, her scholarship status, all of it would be dissected and judged by thousands of strangers. She turned to face Derek, steel returning to her voice like armor sliding into place. 3 against 1. Real impressive, Derek. You must feel so proud making a kid cry. Madison stepped forward, her cheerleader smile razor-sharp and twice as cruel. He shouldn't be in regular school if he can't handle normal kids. There are special places for people like him. The words hit Jasmine like physical blows. She thought of Grammy fighting for decades to include special needs students in regular classrooms. Grammy, who spent her own money on supplies for kids everyone else wrote off as hopeless cases. He has every right to be here. Anger flared hot in Jasmine's chest, burning away her fear. More right than you, actually, since he's not the one making people feel small just so he can feel big. Derek loomed closer, using his 6'3" frame to intimidate her 5'4" presence. You want to end up like your little friend there? On the ground crying? Kyle circled with his camera, hunting for angles like a predator. This is perfect content. Ghetto girl thinks she's a superhero. My followers are going to eat this up. But Jasmine didn't back down. If anything, she stepped closer to Derek, chin raised, eyes blazing with righteous fury she'd been holding back for years. Try me, she said quietly, dangerously. But know that when you do, everyone watching will see exactly who you really are. And that video will follow you a lot longer than it'll follow me. The courtyard held its breath. Derek's hand twitched toward Jasmine's arm, ready to push her like he'd pushed Tommy, but something in her eyes made him hesitate. Maybe the absolute fearlessness. Maybe the growing crowd of witnesses. Maybe the way she positioned herself protectively in front of Tommy like she'd die before letting anyone hurt him again. Or maybe, just maybe, something resembling shame flickered in his chest for the first time in years. You're not worth our time, Derek said finally, trying desperately to save face in front of his audience. Good. Jasmine's voice was granite wrapped in silk. Because Tommy and I have somewhere much better to be. She put her arm gently around Tommy's shoulders, careful and kind. Can you walk, sweetie? Let's get you somewhere safe. Tommy nodded, still sniffling, but noticeably calmer in her presence. As they started toward the building, Derek called after them one last time. This isn't over, scholarship girl. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Without turning around, Jasmine called back clearly, No, Derek. Walking away would have been my biggest mistake. This was the easiest choice I've ever made. A few younger students started clapping hesitantly. Someone shouted, Leave them alone. The crowd's energy shifted like weather changing, and Derek felt his power slipping away like water through his fingers. Whatever, he motioned to Kyle and Madison. This is boring anyway. Let's go." As the bullies retreated with their tails between their legs, Jasmine walked Tommy toward safety. Her arm stayed protective around his shoulders. She could feel him trembling as the adrenaline crash hit them both like a wave. "You're safe now," she whispered. "I promise you're safe." Tommy looked up at her with absolute wonder in his eyes. "Why did you help me? You don't even know me." Jasmine thought of Grammy's voice echoing through years of lessons in love. "Because it was the right thing to do. And because you seem pretty amazing, Tommy." What Jasmine didn't know was that David Harrison had witnessed every single moment from his position near the parking area. Every word, every gesture. Her fearlessness facing 3 larger opponents. Her instant gentleness with Tommy. Her refusal to back down, even when outnumbered and outmatched. David's hands trembled as he pulled out his phone, but not from anger anymore, from recognition, from impossible hope, from a debt 15 years in the making that might finally, miraculously, have found its way home. Part 4. When past and present collide, David Harrison sat in his car with shaking hands, staring at his phone like it held answers to questions he'd been asking for 15 years. "Sarah," he said when his assistant answered, "cancel my 11 o'clock. Actually, cancel everything today. Something important just happened. Something that changes everything." Inside Jefferson High, Jasmine helped Tommy to a bench near the main entrance, watching his breathing return to normal. Students passed by, some offering supportive smiles, others just staring with that mixture of curiosity and judgment that came from witnessing drama unfold. "My painting," Tommy said sadly, looking back toward the puddle where his art lay ruined. "Dad was going to hang it in his office." "Maybe we can fix it," Jasmine offered gently. "I'm actually pretty decent with art. Would you like that?" Tommy's face lit up with the first genuine smile since the nightmare began. "You really do that for me?" "Of course," Jasmine said. "What was your painting about?" "Friendship," Tommy explained with that pure honesty only he could manage. "All different kinds of kids holding hands under a rainbow. My dad says the world needs more friendship between different people." Jasmine smiled, the first real smile she'd managed in weeks. "Your dad sounds incredibly smart." "He is," Tommy said proudly. "He helps lots of people through his work. He says helping people is the best job in the whole world." "What kind of work does he do?" "Something with money and schools and making dreams come true," Tommy said. "I don't understand all of it, but he makes kids happy. Like you made me happy today." Students continued streaming past them toward afternoon classes. Some waved at Tommy, who waved back enthusiastically. Others nodded respectfully at Jasmine. Word was already spreading through the school about what had happened, taking on mythic proportions with each retelling. "I should probably get you to your teacher," Jasmine said reluctantly. She was already 20 minutes late for chemistry, which meant detention, which meant missing her evening shift at Murphy's Diner, which meant losing $32 her family desperately needed. But looking at Tommy's peaceful face, she knew without hesitation she'd make the same choice again. Some things mattered more than money. Some things mattered more than grades. Some things were worth any sacrifice. "Thank you, Jasmine," Tommy said as they stood together. "You're my hero." "You're pretty heroic yourself," she replied softly. "It takes real courage to keep being kind when other people are cruel to you." As they walked toward the special education wing, neither of them noticed the well-dressed man approaching from across the courtyard with purposeful strides. David Harrison had been watching long enough from a distance. Now it was time to meet the girl who'd saved his son, and to discover a connection that would change both their families forever. Mrs. Martinez looked up from organizing art supplies as they entered her classroom. Her warm smile faded instantly when she saw Tommy's tear-stained face and scraped hands. "Tommy, honey, what happened?" She asked with motherly concern. "And where's your beautiful painting?" Tommy's words tumbled out in an excited rush, the way they always did when he had important news. "Some big kids were really mean to me and tore my painting, but Jasmine saved me. She's my hero." She stood up to all of them, even though they were so much bigger. Mrs. Martinez knelt to examine Tommy's palms while looking gratefully at Jasmine. "Thank you so much for helping him. Tommy is precious to all of us here. What you did took real courage." "He's a special kid," Jasmine said softly, meaning it with her whole heart. "Nobody deserves to be treated the way those students treated him." Mrs. Martinez cleaned Tommy's scrapes with practiced gentleness, years of experience showing in every careful movement. "I'd love to write you a recommendation letter for college applications, if you'd like. What you did today shows real character, the kind colleges desperately need to see." Before Jasmine could respond, a voice spoke from the classroom doorway, cultured and careful. "Excuse me, miss." Jasmine turned to see a well-dressed man in an expensive suit standing there, his presence commanding immediate attention. Her stomach dropped instantly, fear flooding through her. Was she in trouble? Had Derek's father already called the school board? Had the bullies somehow twisted the story, made her the aggressor instead of Tommy's protector? "I saw what happened in the courtyard," David said carefully, studying her face. Jasmine tensed, preparing for accusations or punishment, her mind already racing through worst-case scenarios. "I was just helping," she said quickly. "Tommy didn't deserve what they were doing to him. I couldn't just walk away." David stepped into the classroom slowly, his eyes moving between Jasmine and Tommy with an expression she couldn't quite read. Something deeper than simple gratitude. Something that looked almost like wonder. "You were absolutely incredible out there," he said quietly. "Truly remarkable. I'd like to do something to thank you for protecting that young man." He reached for his wallet, and Jasmine's heart sank like a stone. This was exactly what she'd feared most. Being seen as someone who helped people for money, for reward, for anything other than it simply being the right thing to do. David began counting out $100 bills with practiced efficiency. "Please take this. What you did for that boy. There should be some recognition for courage like that. $500 seems appropriate." Jasmine stepped back quickly, her hands raised defensively like she was warding off something dangerous. "I can't take money for doing the right thing, sir. I really can't." "But surely there's something you need," David pressed gently, genuinely trying to help. "College expenses, family medical bills, car repairs? Please, let me help you somehow." The questions hit devastatingly close to home, so accurate it made Jasmine's chest tighten. She thought of Grammy's nearly empty medicine bottles sitting on their kitchen counter, of the Stanford acceptance letter hidden in her textbook, requiring money they'd never have in a lifetime, of working double shifts just to keep their heads barely above water while slowly drowning anyway. For one impossibly tempting moment, she wavered. This stranger was offering enough money to solve her immediate problems. Maybe Granny's medication for several months. Maybe even a chance to actually visit Stanford to see if her impossible dreams could somehow become reality. But Grammy's voice echoed through her memory, clear as crystal. "Beatty, we don't take charity. We work for what we have, and we help others because it's right, not because we expect something back. That's what separates us from people who've forgotten what matters." "Thank you," Jasmine said firmly, despite every practical part of her brain screaming to take the money. "But no, sir. Tommy's safe now. That's all that matters to me. That's all that should matter." David stared at her with something approaching genuine wonder. In his business world, everyone had a price. Everyone wanted something. Everyone played angles and calculated advantages. But this teenager was turning down money she so clearly needed, simply because accepting it felt morally wrong to her. At least let me give you my business card, he said, pulling out a simple white card from his wallet. If you ever need anything at all, please don't hesitate to call me. I mean that sincerely. Jasmine took the card politely, glancing at it briefly without really registering the information. Just another adult trying to be kind after a difficult situation, she figured. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. That's very thoughtful of you. David watched her prepare to leave, then called after her gently. Miss, I'm sorry. I didn't catch your name. Jasmine Williams. Something flickered across David Harrison's face right then. A flash of recognition. Surprise. Something deeper and more profound. But it happened so quickly that Jasmine missed it entirely, already worried about being even later to her chemistry class. Thank you. Jasmine Williams, David said quietly, his voice thick with emotion she didn't understand. More than you could possibly know. More than I can ever properly explain. Part 5. 15 years of searching ends. David Harrison sat in his car in Jefferson High's parking lot for a long time after Jasmine left. Staring at his phone like it might explode, his hands trembled as he dialed his assistant's direct line. Sarah, I need you to pull some files for me. Old files, about 15 years back. Of course, Mr. Harrison. Regarding what specifically? David paused, watching students move between buildings through his windshield. The normal flow of teenage life continuing like the world hadn't just tilted on its axis. Pull everything we have on Ruby Williams. Employment history, family connections, current address. Everything. Silence on the other end of the line. Sarah had managed David's files and research for 8 years now. She knew every name that mattered in his business and personal life. Ruby Williams wasn't among them, which meant this was something different. Something personal. Sir, may I ask why? She ventured carefully. Not yet, David said quietly, his voice rough with emotion he couldn't quite control. But Sarah, also contact Stanford University's admissions office. I need a meeting with their scholarship department tonight, if at all possible. Tell them it's urgent. Are we expanding our scholarship programs again? David looked at the simple white business card he'd given to Jasmine Williams, identical to hundreds he'd handed out over the years. She'd barely glanced at it before tucking it away. Just another piece of paper from another well-meaning adult. If she only knew. Something like that, he said. And Sarah, handle this quietly, please. Family connections, medical history, everything you can find on Ruby Williams and her family. I need to understand the full picture before I move forward. While David made his calls, Jasmine endured her chemistry detention, watching precious daylight fade outside the classroom window. Every minute here was money not earned, medicine not bought. Her future slipping further away with each tick of the clock. When detention finally ended, she rushed to Murphy's Diner, hoping desperately for even a partial shift. The restaurant buzzed with dinner rush chaos when she arrived, and Joe, the owner, called out from behind the grill with obvious relief. Jasmine, thank God you're here. We're absolutely drowning. Sarah called in sick and the evening rush hit early. She tied her apron quickly, grateful despite her bone-deep exhaustion. As she served plates and took orders, refilled drinks and cleared tables, her mind kept drifting back to Tommy's grateful smile, to Derek's cruel laughter, to the mysterious businessman who'd offered money she couldn't accept. That evening, Granny was waiting with news when Jasmine finally dragged herself home. Good news. Her doctor had found new medication options that might work better. Bad news. Their insurance would cover even less than before. Don't you worry about me, baby, Ruby said, but fear flickered in her tired eyes like dying embers. We'll figure something out. We always do. Jasmine pulled David's business card from her pocket later that night, studying it under her desk lamp. Harrison Foundation. Private investment. A phone number. An email address. Nothing that explained why this stranger had seemed so affected by learning her name. What kind of private investment company gave business cards to random high school students? What had she missed in that interaction? She was about to discover that some questions answered themselves in the most unexpected ways possible. Across town, David Harrison stared at the manila folder Sarah had delivered to his home office. Inside were newspaper clippings, hospital records, and one photograph that made his hands tremble so badly he almost dropped it. Younger Ruby Williams in a torn nurse's uniform, holding a 6-month-old baby beside an ambulance. Behind her, paramedics were loading an unconscious man onto a stretcher. Smoke rose from a wrecked car in the background. The headline read, "Local nurse saves CEO and infant son in mountain crash." David touched the photo gently, reverently, like it might disintegrate under his fingers. 15 years of searching. 15 years of hiring private investigators who found nothing. 15 years of carrying unpaid gratitude that grew heavier with each passing year. Until yesterday, when a teenage girl with the same last name, the same moral courage, the same humble refusal of rewards had saved Tommy all over again. He read Ruby's quoted words from the article again, hearing them echo across 15 years. I just did what anyone would do. I'm a nurse. I help people. That's what we're supposed to do. She'd refused any reward back then too, just like her granddaughter had yesterday. She disappeared before David could properly thank her, leaving only a first name and the knowledge that she'd given him and Tommy their very lives. For 15 years, he'd searched desperately. Private investigators combed through hospital records in 3 states. Nothing. Ruby Williams had vanished like smoke, leaving David with unpaid gratitude that haunted him through every success, every milestone, every moment with Tommy Dodd, until now. David picked up his phone and dialed Stanford University's after-hours emergency line for major donors. This is David Harrison. I understand you have a student named Jasmine Williams who's been accepted, but needs financial assistance. Yes, sir. The admissions counselor confirmed. Outstanding candidate. Perfect grades, exceptional test scores. But she hasn't responded to our acceptance, and we suspect it's financial. Whatever she needs, David interrupted, his voice brooking no argument. Full ride, living expenses, medical insurance for her family, everything. Bill it directly to the Harrison Foundation. I want that paperwork ready by tomorrow morning. Sir, that's extraordinarily generous, but shouldn't we verify the student's circumstances first? The verification happened 15 years ago, David said quietly, looking at the photograph of Ruby Williams holding baby Tommy. Some debts take 15 years to repay. This one starts tomorrow, and there's not a moment to waste. What David didn't know yet was that the biggest revelation was still coming. The next morning would bring news that would connect 3 generations and reveal the true depth of what Ruby Williams had actually saved that night on the mountain, and why a simple act of courage in a high school courtyard was about to change everything for everyone involved. Part 6. The debt 15 years in the making. The next morning, Jasmine arrived at school to find Tommy waiting by her locker, practically vibrating with excitement. He held a carefully wrapped package in his small hands, protecting it like treasure. Jasmine, he called out the moment he spotted her. I finished it. Mrs. Martinez helped me stay after school yesterday, and we fixed my painting. He unwrapped the canvas with ceremonial care, revealing his work. The original friendship painting was still there, but transformed now. The rainbow was brighter, the colors more vibrant. And there was something new, a girl with dark skin and a determined expression, standing protectively in front of the other children, with her arms spread wide like a shield. That's you, Tommy announced proudly, his face glowing. You're the superhero in my painting now. Mrs. Martinez said every good painting tells a true story, and this is our true story. Jasmine felt tears prick her eyes unexpectedly. "Tommy, this is absolutely beautiful. Your dad is going to love it so much. He's coming to see it today." Tommy could barely contain his joy, bouncing on his toes. "He wants to meet you too. He said you're very, very special, and he needs to talk to you about something important." "I'm not special," Jasmine said softly, uncomfortable with the praise. "I really just did what anyone should do." Tommy shook his head with that absolute certainty only children possess, the kind that cuts through all adult doubts and complications. "That's exactly what makes you special, Jasmine. Dad says special people never think they're special. That's how you know they really are." Across town, David Harrison sat in his office conference room, staring at documents spread across the mahogany table. Documents that would rewrite everything he thought he knew about coincidence and fate. The newspaper clipping was 15 years old, its edges yellowed with time. Local nurse saves CEO's family in mountain crash. The black and white photograph showed Ruby Williams, a nurse's uniform torn and bloodied, standing beside an ambulance with such quiet dignity. In her arms was baby Tommy, barely 6 months old. Behind her, paramedics were loading an unconscious David onto a stretcher. David remembered that night like it had happened yesterday. Every detail burned into his memory. The ice storm coating the mountain highway in black ice. His car skidding helplessly into the ravine. The smell of gasoline filling the car. Tommy's terrified cries from his car seat. The certainty that they were both going to die, and then Ruby Williams, appearing through the storm like an angel, pulling them both from the wreckage with strength that shouldn't have been possible. Seconds before the car exploded in flames that lit up the night sky, he read Ruby's quoted words again, hearing her voice across 15 years. "I just did what anyone would do. I'm a nurse. I help people. That's what we're supposed to do." She'd refused any reward then, just like her granddaughter had refused his money yesterday. She disappeared into the storm before David regained consciousness, before he could get her full name or contact information. The hospital had no record of her. She'd vanished like smoke, leaving David with unpaid gratitude that grew heavier each year. For 15 years, private investigators had searched. They'd combed through hospital records in 3 states. Tracked down every Ruby Williams they could find. Nothing. She'd vanished completely, as if she'd never existed at all, until yesterday, when a teenage girl with the same last name, the same moral courage, the same humble refusal of rewards had saved Tommy all over again. But there was more. David's hands trembled as he opened the second folder Sarah had prepared. Ruby Williams' employment Tinanan, former teacher at Jefferson Elementary. Early retirement due to family circumstances. Medical bills. Financial hardship following custody of her granddaughter after a fatal car accident. The pieces fell into place like a puzzle. David had been trying to solve for 15 years. Ruby Williams hadn't just saved his life that night. She'd sacrificed her own future to do it. The accident had happened during her night shift at the hospital. She'd been driving home when she saw their car go over the edge. She'd climbed down that ravine in an ice storm, pulled them both out, performed CPR on David while holding a screaming infant, and the trauma of that night, combined with taking custody of her orphan granddaughter, had ended her nursing career, ended her comfortable retirement, ended everything she'd worked for. While David had rebuilt his life and his fortune, Ruby Williams had quietly slipped into poverty, never once reaching out for the help she'd earned 1,000 times over. David's assistant knocked softly. "Sir, Tommy's school called. They're ready for the art presentation whenever you arrive." David looked at his son's latest masterpiece hanging on his office wall. A painting of the two of them holding hands under a rainbow with Daddy's love, written in careful, shaky letters across the top. "Cancel everything else today, Sarah," he said quietly. This is more important than any business meeting could ever be. At Jefferson High, Tommy was setting up his display in the main hallway, chattering excitedly to anyone who would listen about his superhero friend Jasmine. Mrs. Martinez helped position the painting on an easel while students gathered to look. "Your father will be so proud," Mrs. Martinez said warmly. "And proud of how brave you were yesterday, too." "Jasmine made me brave," Tommy said simply, his truth uncomplicated by adult doubts. "She showed me that good people protect each other. That's what real friendship means." When David arrived, he paused in the hallway outside to study Tommy's painting through the doorway. There was his son, depicted with such loving detail. And there was Jasmine, arms outstretched protectively, her painted face somehow capturing the fierce gentleness he'd witnessed in person. "Principal," Watson approached with a professional smile. "Mr. Harrison, we have Miss Williams waiting in the conference room as you requested. Though I must say, this is all quite mysterious." David nodded, his heart beating faster than it had in years. 15 years of searching. 15 years of carrying impossible gratitude like a stone in his chest. And now, by the strangest twist of fate, Ruby Williams' granddaughter had completed what her grandmother started. Had saved Tommy's spirit the way Ruby had saved his life. When Jasmine entered the conference room, she looked nervous and genuinely confused. Her backpack clutched protectively against her chest. "Mrs. Watson said you wanted to speak with me," she said carefully. "Am I in some kind of trouble? Did Derek's family complain about yesterday?" David gestured for her to sit, his voice as gentle as he could make it. "Jasmine, you're not in any trouble at all. But I need to ask you something very important. Your grandmother, her name is Ruby Williams?" Jasmine's eyebrows furrowed in confusion, clearly not understanding why this stranger would know that. "Yes, sir." "How did you possibly know that?" David's voice dropped to barely a whisper, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "Because she saved my life and Tommy's life 15 years ago." The room went completely silent. Jasmine stared at him, her young mind visibly struggling to process what she was hearing. The connection seemed impossible, too coincidental to be real. "There was a car accident," David continued, his voice thick with memory. "A terrible ice storm on the mountain road outside town. Our car went into a ravine. I was unconscious. Tommy was just a baby, screaming in his car seat. The car was filling with gasoline fumes." He paused, overwhelmed by the memory that still haunted his dreams. "If your grandmother hadn't pulled us out before the car caught fire, Tommy and I wouldn't be sitting here today. We would have died that night." Jasmine's eyes widened as the magnitude of it hit her like a physical force. "Grammy never told me," she whispered. She mentioned once that she helped some people in an accident years ago, but she never said anything about saving lives or she refused any reward," David said, his voice breaking slightly. "Disappeared before I could properly thank her. I've been looking for her for 15 years, Jasmine. 15 years of searching, trying to find the woman who gave me my son, who gave me the chance to become the father Tommy needed." Tommy, who had been quietly listening from the doorway with Mrs. Martinez, suddenly spoke up with perfect childlike clarity that cut through all the adult complexity. "So Jasmine's family really are superheroes," he said. "Just like in my painting. Real superheroes who save people." David smiled through tears. He didn't try to hide anymore. "Your grandmother gave me back my life, Jasmine. She gave me the chance to watch Tommy grow up, to become the father he deserved. And yesterday, you gave me the gift of watching him remain safe and confident and protected from cruelty." The parallel was impossible, beautiful, overwhelming in its symmetry. Ruby had saved David and baby Tommy from physical death 15 years ago. Jasmine had saved Tommy from the emotional wounds that could have scarred him forever, that could have made him afraid of the world and the people in it. I don't understand what this means, Jasmine said softly, her voice small in the large conference room. David reached into his briefcase with steady hands, pulling out a thick envelope. It means some debts can only be repaid across generations, Jasmine. It means your family's story with mine has been 15 years in the making. And it means I'm not taking no for an answer this time, not like your grandmother did. Not like you tried to do yesterday. He placed the envelope on the table between them like an offering, like a prayer finally answered. Before you open that, David said gently, I need you to understand what your grandmother truly meant to my family, and what you mean to us now. Part 7. When dreams become reality, Jasmine's hands trembled as she held the sealed envelope. Afraid to open it? Afraid of what impossible thing might be inside. Mr. Harrison, she said carefully, I still don't fully understand what's happening here. David leaned forward, his expression open and honest in a way powerful men rarely allowed themselves to be. 15 years ago, I wasn't just a businessman, Jasmine. I was a broken man drowning in grief. Tommy's mother died during childbirth, and I was terrified of raising a special needs child alone. I didn't think I was strong enough or good enough. His voice grew quiet with painful memory. That night on the mountain, I wasn't just driving home from a business trip. I was running away from everything. From responsibility, from Tommy, from life itself. I was so lost in my grief and fear that I wasn't paying attention to the road. David looked at his son, who was listening with wide, understanding eyes that saw more than most people gave him credit for. If your grandmother hadn't been driving home from her night shift at the hospital, if she hadn't seen our car in the ravine, if she hadn't risked her own life to pull us out, he paused, overwhelmed. Tommy would have grown up without a father. I would have died before I learned how to be the parent he deserved, before I learned that love makes you stronger than you ever thought possible. Tommy came over and took his father's hand with simple affection. Grandma Ruby saved us so we could become a real family, he said, with that clarity that only came from seeing the world without cynicism's filter. Exactly right. Buddy, David said, squeezing Tommy's fingers gratefully. And yesterday, Jasmine completed what her grandmother started all those years ago. He turned back to Jasmine with intensity in his eyes. You didn't just save Tommy from those bullies yesterday. You saved him from something much worse, from believing that the world is a cruel place, where no one will stand up for people like him. You gave him hope and proof that goodness exists. Jasmine felt overwhelmed by the weight of his words, by the impossible connection spanning 15 years and 2 generations. But I really just did what anyone should do. No, David said firmly, his voice leaving no room for argument. What you did was extraordinary, and I know why you did it. I know about Stanford, Jasmine. I know about your grandmother's medical expenses and the impossible choices you face every single day. I know you work double shifts at Murphy's Diner just to afford her diabetes medication. Jasmine's cheeks burned with embarrassment at being so thoroughly seen. How could you possibly know all that? Because I spent 15 years creating the Harrison Foundation specifically to help families like yours, David explained. When I couldn't find your grandmother to repay her directly, I decided to help other people instead, to honor her sacrifice by making the world a little better. But I never stopped searching for her, Jasmine. Never stopped hoping I'd get the chance to properly say thank you. He gestured toward the envelope still clutched in her hands. Please open it. With trembling fingers, Jasmine broke the seal. Inside was official letterhead from Stanford University, but not the financial aid rejection she'd been dreading. At the top, in bold letters, Full Scholarship Award, Harrison Foundation. Below that, a cashier's check for $50,000 made out to Ruby Williams. And at the bottom, a handwritten note in elegant script. Miss Williams, 15 years ago, you gave me and my son a second chance at life. Please let me give Jasmine hers. With eternal gratitude, David Harrison. Jasmine stared at the papers, her brain refusing to process the numbers that seemed impossible, fictional, too good to be true. This can't be real, she whispered finally. This is too much. I can't possibly accept this from you. It's not charity, David said gently but firmly. It's a debt I should have paid 15 years ago, plus 15 years of compound interest on gratitude that's been growing every single day. Tommy bounced excitedly beside them. Does this mean Jasmine can go to college and Grandma Ruby won't have to worry about being sick anymore? That's exactly what it means, David confirmed with a warm smile. Full tuition, room and board, everything through graduate school if she wants it. Complete medical insurance for your grandmother with no copays or deductibles. Monthly living stipends so you never have to choose between studying and working again. Jasmine looked up, tears streaming down her face unchecked. But why? Why would you do something this enormous for us? Because your family taught me what grace looks like, David said simply. Your grandmother could have driven past that accident 15 years ago. It was late, it was dangerous. She'd just finished a 12-hour shift. Every logical reason said to keep driving, to call 911 and let professionals handle it. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. You could have walked past Tommy yesterday. You had everything to lose and nothing to gain. But neither of you did, because that's not who the Williams women are. You see someone who needs help, and you act, regardless of the cost to yourselves. David leaned forward intently. But this isn't just about the past, Jasmine. It's about the future too. After college, I want you to come work for the Harrison Foundation. We identify and support young people like you, people who demonstrate moral courage when it matters most. I need your voice, your perspective, your heart in that work. What would I actually do? Jasmine asked, barely daring to hope this was real. Help us find more students like yourself, David explained. Create programs that teach empathy and bravery to young people. Help me solve something I've never been able to figure out on my own. How to identify character before it's tested in crisis. How to spot the next Ruby Williams, the next Jasmine Williams, before they prove themselves through fire. Tommy suddenly spoke up with characteristic directness. Can I help too? I want to tell other different kids that it's okay to be different and that there are heroes who will protect them like Jasmine protected me. David smiled with obvious pride. That's exactly what we need, buddy. Your voice, your story, your beautiful art. That's how we change hearts and minds, one person at a time. Jasmine looked at the scholarship letter again, then at the check. $50,000. More money than her family had ever dreamed of seeing in their entire lives. Enough to secure Grammy's medicine for years. Enough to stop the constant worry, the daily calculations, the impossible choices that had defined her existence for so long. There's one more thing, David said quietly. I'm establishing the Ruby Williams Scholarship Program at Jefferson High and eventually at schools across the country. It will support students who demonstrate moral courage regardless of their academic performance or financial need. You're naming it after Grammy, Jasmine whispered. Overwhelmed. She's the one who taught my family that real wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, David said. It's measured in how we treat each other when nobody's watching and nothing's expected in return. That's a lesson worth spreading as far and wide as possible. Jasmine felt the weight of infinite possibility, settling around her like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. College, a real future. Grammy's health secured for the first time in years. But more than that, the chance to help other kids like Tommy, other families like her own, to make the kind of difference that rippled outward into the world. Mr. Harrison, she said finally, her voice stronger now. I accept your offer, but I have some conditions too. David raised an eyebrow, genuinely amused and impressed. Name them. First, Tommy gets to help design every single anti-bullying program we create, Jasmine said firmly. His voice and his experience matter more than any adult expert's opinions ever could. Agreed, David said immediately. Second, part of my internship has to involve coming back to Jefferson High regularly to mentor students, Jasmine continued. Kids need to see that people like them can succeed, can make it out, and come back to help others. Absolutely, David nodded. And third, Jasmine finished. Grammy gets consulted on every scholarship decision the foundation makes. She understands character better than anyone I've ever met in my entire life. David extended his hand with a smile that reached his eyes and transformed his entire face. Deal. Welcome to the Harrison Foundation family, Jasmine Williams. I have a feeling you're going to change everything. As they shook hands, Tommy clapped and bounced with pure, unfiltered joy. We're all superheroes now. Just like in my painting. A whole family of superheroes who help people. And for the first time in her 17 years, Jasmine Williams believed that maybe, just maybe, dreams really could come true when you had the courage to do what was right, regardless of the cost. Part 8. The Ripple Effect of Courage 6 months later. The ripple effects of one moment of courage had transformed an entire community, proving that when ordinary people choose to act with love, the whole world shifts in ways no one can predict. Stanford University's freshman orientation buzzed with nervous energy as hundreds of new students found their dorms and started their new lives. In Wilbur Hall, room 237, Jasmine Williams hung the last photograph on her wall, her and Tommy at his latest art show. Both grinning widely, his arm around her shoulders. Her roommate Ashley looked at the picture curiously. Is that your little brother? You two look so happy together. Something like that, Jasmine smiled warmly. He taught me that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what's right anyway, even when you're terrified of the consequences. At Stanford, Jasmine wasn't just surviving anymore. She was absolutely thriving. When her organic chemistry study group struggled with complex molecular reactions, she stayed late in the library, explaining bonds and structures until everyone understood. When her roommate broke down over homesickness in the middle of the night, Jasmine listened for hours, offering tissues and wisdom that seemed beyond her 18 years. You have this incredible gift for making people feel heard and valued, her resident advisor Marcus told her one evening. Have you considered getting peer counseling certification? Students on this campus really need voices like yours. Back home in their sunny new 2-bedroom apartment, Ruby Williams sat in her comfortable chair with grab bars installed in every room, accessible features throughout, and a medical alert system she'd never actually needed to use. Her weekly doctor visits were no longer sources of financial terror that kept her awake at night. Her medication arrived in full bottles every month, taken on schedule with no dangerous rationing or impossible choices. But the biggest change wasn't the apartment or the health care or even the financial security. It was purpose. Mrs. Williams, Principal Watson, said during one of Ruby's weekly visits to Jefferson High, "We've had 23 students apply for the Ruby Williams Scholarship this semester alone. 23 young people who want to make a difference in the world. Inspired by your example." Ruby reviewed applications in the school's conference room every week now, the same room where David had revealed his connection to Jasmine. Each application told a story of small heroism that moved her heart. A student who'd started a lunch program for homeless classmates. Another who'd created peer tutoring specifically for kids with learning disabilities. A young man who'd stood up to his own friends when they were bullying someone smaller. This one, Ruby said, pointing to Maya Rodriguez's application with her reading glasses perched on her nose. She stopped some seniors from bullying a boy with autism last month. Says here, she remembered Tommy's assembly about standing up for others, even when it's scary. As the bullies dispersed with their tails between their legs, Maya helped Alex organize his scattered notebooks with gentle hands. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Alex typed on his tablet and showed her the screen. His message simple and profound. "Thank you for seeing me as a person worth protecting." Tommy smiled, remembering his own words from years ago, remembering Jasmine's courage that had changed everything. "Maya, there's someone I'd like you to meet. Have you heard of the Ruby Williams Scholarship?" Later that afternoon in Ruby's office at the school, 3 generations of courage sat together in a circle. Ruby, now the official community liaison coordinator. Tommy, the foundation's youngest ambassador. And Maya, the newest link in a chain of kindness that stretched backward and forward through time. Jasmine joined them via video call from Stanford, her face filling the screen with pride and joy. "What you did today," Jasmine said from her dorm room 300 miles away. "That's exactly how real change happens in the world. One person refuses to walk away when someone needs help, and that courage spreads like light in darkness." Maya grinned, feeling something shift inside her chest. "I just remembered what you said in your assembly freshman year. Ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they choose courage over comfort and love over fear." Alex, using his tablet, added his own truth. "The best part is this gets to be my story to tell now. The day someone stood up for me and showed me I matter." Tommy held up his latest painting, Maya, Alex, and himself standing together under a rainbow with the words, "Heroes come in all forms," painted across the bottom in his careful, loving hand. Ruby watched 3 generations of kindness in her office and smiled with satisfaction that came from a life well lived. "This isn't just about any of us anymore," she said wisely. "It's about everyone who chooses courage when it matters most. It's about building a world where protecting each other is just what we do." The tradition continued, spreading like ripples across water. One choice at a time. One hero at a time. One moment of courage inspiring the next. Proving that Jasmine Williams had started something that would outlast them all and touch lives they'd never even meet. Because in the end, that's what real heroism looks like. Not superpowers or capes or dramatic rescues from burning buildings. Just ordinary people choosing to do what's right when it would be easier to look away. Just kindness meeting cruelty and refusing to back down. Just love answering hate with quiet, unshakable strength. Jasmine Williams proved that you don't need superpowers to change everything. You just need the courage to act when someone needs help. The wisdom to see people for who they really are. And the strength to stand up even when you're shaking inside. In a world where it's easier to look away, she chose to step forward. When she had everything to lose, she risked it all for a stranger. And in doing so, she proved that one person's choice really can transform the world. Today, the Ruby Williams Scholarship Program has transformed over 300 students across 22 schools and counting. Tommy Harrison continues teaching thousands that differences make us stronger and more beautiful. Derek Collins now runs anti-bullying programs at 3 high schools, teaching from experience about redemption and change. And Jasmine graduates from Stanford next year, planning to become the teacher who sees potential in every single student, who never gives up on anyone. Their story reminds us that kindness creates miracles when we let it. That courage is more contagious than fear, and that sometimes the smallest act of compassion changes absolutely everything for everyone it touches. What will your moment look like when you see someone who needs help? Will you be the person who steps forward? Will you be the voice that says, "That's not okay"? Will you be the one who refuses to walk away? Because the world needs more people like Jasmine, like Ruby, like Tommy, like Maya. The world needs more of you, brave, kind, willing to risk something for someone else. That your moment of courage could be just one choice away. And that choice might just change everything.